So they've given us shots here. Is this to perk us up after last night?
Yes, I need this. You know, Frank got the Legends of Football Awards with six years ago.
I remember getting really nervous because he had to go up to speak, didn't he, Hayley?
Yeah. Oh, punchy.
I know. I feel like it's cleared my head though.
Oh, that's nice. Woo.
I didn't ever know that you got an actual cap. You know that when I first
cool,
met.
isn't it?
He said, no, you get a cap.
Yeah.
I went, oh, you actually get a physical cap. That was all new to me.
Wayne was really good at sort of mixing with everybody, and that was one of the skills that they looked at as England captain.
When he's kicking the ball with Frank and he does these sort of pretend dives. What are you doing that for? You didn't trip.
I feel like a bit of a fraud. I was born in Manchester. At least I'm a Man United fan born in Manchester. Rare.
Brought to you by SkyBet.
Hi, I'm Hayley McQueen and welcome to our show, part of the Overlap Network brought to you by SkyBet. I am joined by Christine Lampard and Kelly Cates, and we're not here to break down and analyse the beautiful game or even get into the stats, but we want to talk about all the great discussion points and how football impacts our lives beyond the pitch.
Brought to you by SkyBet. It's a big deal though, isn't it? I mean, I felt hugely proud any time Frank captained Chelsea, you know, Champions League being probably the biggest one, but certainly when it comes to your country, that's imagine like being able to tell your children, like we've got Frank's 100 cap, you know, this lovely gold cap. I didn't ever know that you got an actual cap, you know that when I first
cool,
met.
isn't it?
He said, no, you get a cap. I went, oh, you actually get a physical cap. That was all new to me. And now we've got quite a few.
And then did you ask him to wear it?
I know, yes. Often.
Put it on for me, Frank.
But no, but we do, and we have the 100th one, and it's in this lovely case and all the rest of it, and it's a real talking point actually. If people come round to the house and things, it's such for me. I felt real pride for him, and I know he certainly felt huge pride just for playing for England, but to captain them, it means something. I think still does, or does it? Maybe it doesn't with a slightly younger lot coming through. Maybe
I didn't realise as well, just on the whole cap thing, just getting back to the fashion. So in our time of when our dad certainly played, my dad and your dad played for Scotland, you would get one cap per year. Whereas now you get a cap, I think, for every single game you play in. So like they were even more sought after.
And you used to only get them then it was only if you started the game, and then now you get them even if you're a sub, I think.
Oh gosh.
You get,
right.
I think you might have to be used, but you have to,
Oh, I love it. We've got one
Give
from
away
each
for
year.
anything.
Yeah, I know. There you go.
I thought it was a big deal.
No.
But even being captain, I think you're right. It's a real personal honour. I'm not sure that on the pitch that all the players would say, you know, the leaders are the leaders, and the people who kind of run the team on the pitch are the same players whether they've got the armband or not. But I think there's a lot of admin with being particularly the national captain. You have to do lots of shake hands with sponsors.
There's a lot of extra work, you know. A lot of them, I think, as you say, you finish training and then they go on, they do their bits. But as a captain and a sort of a leader type role, you have to do the press, or you have to take the difficult questions from you two, for instance. But that is sort of. But I think there has to be a bit of prep involved in it, certainly, and the ability to be able to do it confidently. That's quite a scary thing if you've had a big loss and you're having to face the press. That's never an easy conversation for any player.
The view of it in the UK is that it's this prestige role for someone who's kind of got these great leadership skills, and that's very much the kind of mentality of it. But other places, it's just you give it to the player who's been there the longest, or who has the most caps if it's international, or you give it to the best player or the most, you know, the key player. So it's not. I think some places it's not as big an achievement or as prestigious. I think maybe.
I think certainly when Frank was at Chelsea and he was sort of vice for a lot of it, and obviously John Terry was captain, but certainly in those days I know that it was the role was hugely important because they tried to really create a sense of a Chelsea community, and I remember conversations, even just organising Christmas parties, and I noticed it when we went to Man City as well, actually, and there was a real sense of community there too. So from a family perspective, they would, you know, any kind of occasion, there would be a Halloween party, or there'd be a barbecue in the summer, or there'd be things that made everyone feel like you were backing literally the same team. And I think that was a really important aspect of it, as not as the player, as the wife.
But that's not just football, is it? That's just great leadership skills, isn't it?
right. No matter what walk of life you're in, I think those little things actually go a really long way to create happiness and for people to feel content in their environment. So, and I think if you're a good captain, you're good at sort of being the leader of that and being the organizer, really.
There's that huge weight of responsibility, though, because you're not just a role model on the pitch, you're almost becoming a role model to your peers as well, and that rubs off on the younger players. And we've had situations, haven't we, with Kyle Walker, for example, and some of the naughty little things that he's got up to with the kind of urinating and stuff, and you think, oh God, come on. And it's not the worst thing you could possibly do, but it's like you've got people looking up to you like, do we question whether somebody should be a captain because of behaviours away from the pitch and the field because of this other responsibility that they then have? Don't know.
I think I changed my mind on this, because I think when I was younger, I was like, who on earth would set up, as a parent, why would you point to footballers and say they should be your role models? That's kind of a parent's job to kind of find good role models or help their kids find good role models. And then actually I think it's not having kids of my own, it's growing up myself and being aware of your own responsibilities that I think when you're in such a privileged position, if you get to play football for a living at any level, and then you get to go on to become a captain, it's an incredibly privileged position. Yeah. And you have to have some responsibility there. And it's not, we all get outraged so easily now. And it's just, everybody's furious about everything all the time. But, there has to be some allowance for human nature and human frailty. But other than that, you just have to try and be decent and be a decent person.
I think too, certainly maybe when it comes to football in particular, if they are a really good player and they're saving their team every week, or they're going out scoring all of the goals, people will forgive pretty much anything. So I think a lot of it, certainly in the footballing world for me, I think as long as they're doing well on the pitch, I think a true fan actually doesn't really care that much because you're delivering in your job, and that's all that matters to me. And I think that they can maintain a role regardless of maybe what they've done off the pitch.
But it's the difference between being a bad boy and being like a lovable rogue.
Yeah,
isn't
it's like Prince Harry back in the day, though, wasn't it? Prince Harry, when he went to Vegas, he was never loved more.
Yeah.
There he was, like getting naked in swimming pools with these glamorous women in Vegas. People were like, he's our favourite member of the royal family.
He seems really relatable.
Hey, we get him. So I think it entirely depends on what the role is in the first place, possibly. And people like a bit of naughtiness.
Yeah. Brought to you by SkyBet.
I love the fact that, like at the moment, for example, I love Harry Kane. I'm obviously not like the biggest England fan, certainly not like a Spurs fan. Don't mind a bit of Bundesliga, but I just think his childhood sweetheart. He really tries to set the example. He's so aware of his image, and I think he is just a well-behaved young man, isn't he? Quite intelligent as well. And he's a family man. He's got his children. His wife is so involved in everything that he does. He keeps his children very private on social media. And I'm loving the fact that I've got a little girl, and if she wants to look at the England national team or look at a captain or look at a footballer, I would happily hold him up and use him as sort of a perfect example of somebody living his life the way that young people should be looking up to others. Or is that rose-tinted?
But it seems to be something that you get much more in the men's game, and I think there are probably two reasons for that. One is that there's not a level of acceptance of it, but there is a history of the game, the men's game, allowing bad boys and bad behaviour and letting players get away with things. And the other thing is just that there's much more attention on footballers. That there's nobody going around following in the same way that they'd be following a Kyle Walker, with their phone in the same way. It's just not quite there yet in terms of the women's game, which is a great thing, and there's lots of effort going into developing the game so that it doesn't develop in the same way as the men's does, as it kind of gets closer in terms of popularity.
Slightly protected a little.
Yeah, and then just treating people like human beings.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, but people, I think, do enjoy a little bit of, like I say, naughtiness, and hearing that these people that you look up to and you adore on a pitch are also human. Yeah. So when there are little things, I don't mean major stuff, but when you kind of hear Jack Grealish partying in Ibiza, it's like, fair enough.
Do you know what?
Doesn't bother me.
People like a bit of naughtiness, but people also really love to judge.
Oh,
they like to sit and they like to tut over their coffee. They're sitting, phone in one hand, coffee in the other. Just like, oh my God, that's appalling.
That's very
all do it.
But then social media's changed it again, hasn't it? Because even back in our early days together, you would have maybe had a picture taken, but it was always like a paparazzi person doing the picture 16 years ago. But now that doesn't exist really so much.
No.
It's just anyone on a phone. So I think maybe they've all had to toe the line a little bit better. But you talk about Harry Kane, and my little boy is obsessed with Harry Kane, loves Bayern Munich purely because of him. And Frank has a friend who works over there with him and very kindly got him to sign a shirt for my little boy. Wow. It is pride of place upstairs in his room. He adores. He's got all the new kit and everything, and it's all because of Harry Kane. I think that stays with you too. I mean, because on the flip side of that, my little boy clearly watches football all the time, and when you see players diving or falling over all of the time, and Frank obviously doesn't have this view, but I'm like, oh, get up. And then my little boy, of course, he then, when he's kicking the ball with Frank, and he does these sort of pretend dives. What are you doing that for? You didn't trip.
Get up.
So you're copying what you're watching.
It's true.
So
though,
all
isn't
these
it?
things are little seeds planted at such a young stage. So albeit maybe playing or diving with dad out in the garden, but equally so, he's holding Harry Kane up with high esteem at this point. And that's lovely. I think that does stick with you. You grow up and you go, oh, nice, love. And of course, Harlan.
I've heard other parents say their kids behave differently when they're playing football from how they would if they were playing rugby or how they would if they were playing cricket.
Yeah.
That there is, like, it genuinely, because we can all kind of be quite guilty of going, well, they see the players do it and they just copy them in the playground. This genuinely happens.
Absolutely, 100% yes. I think they mimic everything. Absolutely. My little girl watches Barbie videos all day and mimics all of their accent. I mean, I remember doing that sort of stuff back then. So of course it does. It seeps in from such an early stage, which is why keeping conversations open all of the time about things. And no, you don't have to do it that way, darling.
Have you seen
You didn't trip.
Brought to you by SkyBet.
It's making big headlines, but are we thinking it's a bit of a non-story that Richard Masters is campaigning for Premier League footballers not to have to go through airport security? Because up until now, they haven't had to do that, presumably because they fly privately and travel through an airport in a different way, at a different entrance and an exit. But yeah, they're now going to be subject to new
government... This isn't legislation that's for Premier League football, is it?
No, it's just government crackdown
some security
on the
changes.
Yeah. But I mean, can you imagine a footballer just walking through an airport having to queue up with his little shoes off in a tray whilst like hordes, it's supposed to be somewhere safe and controlled, isn't it, in an airport? Like,
I mean, they tend to fly en masse, don't they?
Yeah.
I mean, this isn't about them going on their holidays with their family. This is that, but when they fly as a team, look, there's the environmental issue of them taking these short haul flights regularly throughout the season, and that's a different part of the conversation. But in terms of getting a football team, the logistics of getting a whole squad of players through an airport, it makes sense that you kind of keep them en masse, put them through a channel, get them on the plane and get them out, just to make things
easier.
They're
all used to. I mean, that goes on throughout the entire Premier League. I mean, there's the odd time I remember they would get a coach somewhere, or very rarely it would have been a commercial flight, but I think that's just the norm for all of them. It would be different if only a few selected teams were doing that and everyone else was having to do exactly as you described. I get then that's not fair. But if it's a blanket thing, I think they all do that. And it's not being paid for by us, it's being paid for by their very wealthy owners. So I sort of go, well...
You probably own the plane.
And I know they would probably argue from a... injury perspective too, I think, and it sounds silly, I mean, who's really going to get injured in a 1 hour flight? But equally so if you're sort of cramped or you're having a delay at the airport, or what if you miss a match because there's a flight cancelled, as mine was last week back to Belfast? There would be lots of other issues involved in that, I would assume. So to keep everything, I get it, I mean, they've the money to do it, and it gets them all there on time, gets them home. And that's just the end of it. And particularly if it's a long haul flight, if they're going to any sort of international things, I kind of get the fact that it's safer just to keep them all together, like you say.
I don't understand. I read the article and I have no idea what changed. I don't know what the rule is that changed.
Yeah, I don't get it.
They've just used that as an example just to highlight a story which is kind of a non-story.
But what's the change? That's what I don't understand from the story.
Yeah.
I don't know what the change is. How was it and how is it? And they said, we've changed the security. And I kept looking for it. I was like, well, what rules have actually changed? and I can't see anything.
Yeah,
I don't
it's
know.
just like a headline just for a headline.
You can't, for example, have Erling Haaland walking through Manchester Airport with the rest of the Manchester City team.
The whole
safely.
airport would come to
Yeah,
standstill.
of course it would.
You need security, and it's better if they're separate.
Yeah.
Because
In charge of all their own passports and things.
Because if I'm
keeps
flying
focused
from
too.
Manchester Airport and Manchester City are coming through and there's mobs of people and everybody's kind of rushing to get, I'm annoyed because I can't then get through security.
Yeah, no,
I'd
that's
rather they
true.
were in a separate building and in a separate part of the building.
Absolutely,
To
I
go and
know,
get checked in that way.
Just go do your thing, do your job.
Yeah. Take your little Louis Vuitton wash bag and off
That's right.
you go.
Your big earphones and off you pop.
Even like travelling with Manchester United, when we used to travel away for like Champions League games, and I remember being sort of part of the travelling party, but there would always be someone that would be in charge of all the passports. And I was like, what's in there? It's like everybody's passport. Like, imagine being that person and working for the club. I was like, can they not like sort their own passport? Just gets done for them when they walk through, but it just makes life easy, doesn't it?
But also, it used to
Why
be
not?
the case that I don't know if this is still the case, but players the clubs would keep their passports.
Yes.
So when they wanted to go on a family
Yes.
holiday, they'd have to get in touch with the club and say, can I have my passport back?
Yeah.
That's right. Yes, I do remember that occasionally
Yeah.
happening. Yeah, that's exactly right. I remember him leaving his passport at home once and me having to drive to Chelsea to get it to him, and it only ever happened once, to be fair, and it would never have happened again. But yeah, so I get why that happened as well. I remember I had a friend of mine years ago that worked within the kind of the backroom staff, and she was on the flight with all of the players, and she said to me afterwards, if this plane, God forbid, goes down, no one's even going to know my name. You know the way you hear, God forbid, anything awful happens and they list all the famous shit. I won't even get mentioned. I thought, that's terrible. I'll mention you. Don't you worry about that.
It'd be like when Mother Teresa died on the same day as Princess Diana.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's true, isn't it?
Took a dark turn there.
No. Kelly.
Brought to you by SkyBet.
We were talking about
Kelly.
the captaincy thing and the pride, you know, that you do have. I would assume, I would certainly, if I did remotely anything for my country, which I haven't, but played netball quite well for a while. But other than that, if you were of that level, do you think that people still feel that kind of pride running through their veins when it comes to playing for their national team, say for England, for instance, right now? Do you think that still exists?
You worked on the Scotland games for a while, didn't you?
Yeah, and I think it did take a little bit of a turn at one point. Got a bit of a situation fairly recently with Che Adams not wanting to play in the Nations League. He's completely fit, but actually I look at it from a different point of view now. I'm like, oh, you're turning down the chance to play for Scotland just as we're starting to qualify for major tournaments. But he's just moved to Italy and he's trying to settle into life there, and he's moved his family and he's got a lot going on, and he just doesn't want that upheaval and he just wants to settle. So I think there are obviously life factors coming into this as well. I think of my dad's generation and knowing my dad, and he was a very sort of passionate Scotsman. He said, you couldn't, like,
There's no other kind.
He said, if I had a broken leg, I would be begging to be playing.
Yeah.
He said, I could have my leg hanging. I think one of his quotes was, my leg would be hanging off and I would still offer to play for the team, travel with the team, being in and around it. And I think that there are kind of ups and downs. And there are so many games that they're having to play now. So I kind of do understand the travel element comes into it, and fatigue, and worried about injuries and things. But I do think back in the day, sort of 60s, 70s, 80s, it wasn't like that. You would play for your country. That was the biggest honour. We've got a super passionate captain though in Andy Robertson. I mean, you could not ask for anyone better. And getting his, he broke records. He won his 49th or 50th cap during the Euros in the summer, and he was like so proud of it, and that's all he spoke about. And earning a cap and being the captain of your side at a major tournament, you could just see how much it meant to him. And I was like, okay, this is it. I feel proud that is my nation.
Yeah. Does it feel edgier? Does it feel
this one just gone, and the Scotland fans were incredible.
Yeah,
like to the point where Germany adored them, and there was a big petition that got thousands of signatures saying we want Germany and Scotland to play a friendly every year so that the fans could all meet up. And they had the best time, and I was kind of every place that I went to, didn't last for very long, sadly, but every place I went to, I was trying to go and find the Scotland fans and kind of hover about and sort of just
soak it up.
And it was fun. No, it was disappointing in the end in terms of how Scotland went out of the competition, but there was so much enthusiasm, I think, around the Scotland team this time around.
And
definitely.
I think that when you feel like you're a bit of an underdog, it's like
that's it.
It's like X Factor or any of these shows. That sort of you can't help but sort of go, oh, I really hope you do well. Even though you think that they mightn't, but you really do.
In 2016 at the Euro when they were in
my
France,
goodness.
and that was just Colin Murray was there, working on it. And Colin was like cheerleader. He was front and centre of everything.
I can imagine that.
He had every song, everything. He was
We've got a mural in East Belfast on the way into Belfast of when England.
Colin.
Of when England came to play Northern Ireland, and Northern Ireland beat them 1-0. David Healy scored that one goal, and there's a mural of this moment. That would have been just before I met Frank, and he played in that game. And we still talk about it. I drive from past this road just to go, look at that. Now, the similarity of the play, the artwork is questionable, but you do know who it is, and the score is there. And so those moments literally live forever in the memories of fans that never think they're going to win, and then they do. It's like it goes back to real life again, doesn't it? When the impossible happens, and you think that just reignites, a love of life again. It's like, this is possible. We could do it.
It's interesting. The three of us sitting here who all live in England.
Yeah.
Were you born in England as well? Or I was born in Glasgow.
So you're
obviously
officially
Belfast for Christine. But you are Scottish, aren't you?
Yeah.
Not English.
I just feel British, which sounds ridiculous.
Do you?
Yeah. I felt that I'd always felt more Scottish because of my dad, but I'm like, I feel like a bit of a fraud. I was born in Manchester. At least I'm a Man United fan, born in Manchester. Rare. But moving up to Scotland we moved abroad first for a couple of years and then located in Scotland. I was there until I was 16, and obviously my dad is a very passionate Scot, and I've worked up there, and I do feel that is home. But I feel like, I could never call myself English because I don't feel English. But when I go to say I'm Scottish, I feel like I'm cheating.
It is weird. You don't.
You're
you
right
don't
on the
feel,
borders.
You don't. You don't really fit in either place because you're like, well, I don't feel English and I'm not English.
Yeah.
But when I go to Scotland, I certainly don't sound Scottish.
Yeah, I know that.
And then you see people looking at you going, "Are you?
Yeah.
Like, when Americans go over to Ireland and they go, we've got all this history and like 7 generations back, and
are we related?
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah, I'm one of
That's the thing.
Oh, my family were Blakeleys.
It's brilliant though. I become more Irish when I'm in New York. You never pay for a drink anywhere. Yeah. Literally every bar you go into, and they go, "Where are you from?" And I'm like, "Oh, well, I'm from just outside Belfast." And I'm like, "Oh my God, my family are from." It's like, "What can we get you to drink?" I'm like, "Well, let's," and then that's it.
I need to practice my accent when I go to the
you
States.
really do. You really do. We're heroes in New York.
But it makes me understand. When players are criticised for having maybe dual nationality, or they feel like they could represent more than one country, and it's like, well, how do you have that kind of how do you have that difference? Surely you just feel one thing or another.
That's it.
It's identity is so much more complicated than that.
It is.
I mean, my dad made sure the one thing that we had up in our house, we don't have an awful lot of memorabilia, but the one photo that he had was him heading the ball against England at Wembley, high up, like this huge big 6'4" guy, like 5 feet off the ground with this head, and that you open the door, and every house we've ever moved to, it's the first thing you see. It's like, that's right. I'm like, okay, it's still there right now.
Welcome to Scotland banner over the top.
Pretty much is what it is.
That's
obviously in that game
at
Wembley. So we don't have much at all, but you make sure that is it.
That is the moment. I love that though. What a lovely, lovely thing forever. That's there from now on. So my little boy can choose between England and Northern Ireland then, depending on.
There you go.
Yeah, he loves his Northern Ireland kit too.
But you can pick. Why not? You can have a little bit of both.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you're young, we're not going to criticise him yet.
Alex Bruce played for Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland.
Oh, that's
I mean, that is quite controversial, isn't it?
That's
right. I'm going to say, there's split identities.
There's a lot going on there in that sentence.
A lot to unpack.
Very much so. Hundreds of years worth of unpacking, but anyway,
Brought to you by SkyBet.
It's time for our Super 6 predictions, where this week there is £750,000 up for grabs if someone correctly predicts this week's 6 Premier League games. It's a lot of money.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Ooh, Hayley. Yeah. But I'm going to ask you both, in your professional opinion, 3 o'clock kickoff, Man United, Brentford. Brentford, they're back in there, aren't they? Doing well
They're playing really well. And they play well against Manchester United.
Yes, they absolutely do.
And Manchester United are not having a great start to the season. I feel like there's a lot of tension around Old Trafford, which is where it's being played.
They have to win this, though. But is there too much pressure on them?
Do you know what? They do have a habit of getting the result just as it feels like the string's about to snap, doesn't it?
Brentford do it in the first 2 minutes, though.
Yeah,
that's the problem, aren't they?
Yeah, we're going to go for an early Brentford goal.
Early, definitely. Yeah. Definitely. That's what they do.
I don't think it'd be a huge surprise if Brentford win that one.
I'm going to stick a draw on this. I'm going to go
score draw.
Loyalty.
1-1.
1-1? Right, okay.
I'm not having United losing at Old Trafford.
I might go Brentford 1-0.
1-1, okay. Newcastle, Brighton. Oh, that could be a fairly equal game.
This one could have loads of goals.
Yes.
Could have loads of goals.
Although Newcastle didn't muster any goals in their last game.
Yeah.
But
that's the thing. It could go on with it, and they don't. Yeah, but it depends on who they've got playing up front. Newcastle, doesn't it?
True.
Because they've got injuries to the side.
Anthony Gordon's injured,
but they
as
are,
well, isn't he?
And they are at home.
Yeah.
I'm gonna. Do you know what? Sod it. I'm gonna go for a 3-2 to Newcastle.
3-2.
There you go.
Just because I like it.
Goals galore.
Good. Oh, that'll be a good game. I look forward to that. Yes, excellent.
Me too. Shame it's not on the telly.
Oh, boo.
Another 3 o'clock kickoff is Fulham, Aston Villa. Oh, I don't know about that.
Fulham, they're doing so
Fulham?
well. I think they're a bit of a surprise at the moment. I think they could be the disruptors of the Premier League this season. I know we could say the same about Aston Villa as well, of course.
Yeah, they were so good against City, Fulham, weren't they?
Yeah, I know.
Villa, they'll have been a bit rested. The draw last time out was because it was after the Bayern Munich win and the. What are you going
I'm
for?
going
Fulham.
for Fulham win.
I'm going to go Villa.
Just a 1-0, just a nice, clean 1-0.
I'm going to go Villa.
Okay.
I'm going to go Villa 2-1.
Okay.
Just for balance.
Okay. I'm still thinking about Newcastle Brighton. I'm struggling here. I'm going to go 2-2. I'm going to go for
2-2.
high goals, but a draw.
Okay.
So
all right. High intensity. Right. Yes, gotcha. Okay. Right. Bournemouth, Arsenal.
I think that's an Arsenal win.
I would have thought so, yeah.
And I think it might be one of those 2-0, fairly comfortable, not spectacular kind of wins. That's what I'm thinking, which I'm going to look ridiculous when either Bournemouth beat Arsenal or Arsenal absolutely blow them up.
6-0 Bournemouth.
Yeah. It's going to be fairly steady but unspectacular.
The Bournemouth fans chanting your name at home.
3-0 to Arsenal.
Effigy on the terraces.
Yeah. Hayley, yes?
Yeah, 3-0 to Arsenal.
3-0?
Yeah.
Okay.
Clean sheet.
Yeah. You're getting the effigy.
Yeah, that's me.
Okay, Wolves, Man City. Wolves aren't doing great, are they? Unfortunately,
do you know what? They've had the hardest start, haven't they? In terms of fixtures.
Such a shame.
Like, do you know what? They've got the second international break coming up. They can reset after that.
Yeah.
They can get everything together. Gary O'Neill can get the players in, refocus.
Yeah.
And then they come back and the first game's Manchester City.
I know. It's like, really? The football gods are just like not playing. They've had, 6 points in 17 games or something, isn't it?
That's the thing. It's the end of last season.
It's the end of last season.
Carried over,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah,
I think it's going to be an absolute goal fest for City. I really do.
Yeah.
Okay.
5-1.
Do you know what though?
5-1.
Cheeky little one.
City have been conceding.
That's why I've got the one in there.
Yeah, you've got the one in there.
Just the one.
I know, and I'm now thinking, I don't know.
All out attack.
We go 5-1.
Yeah. As big as that.
I'll go 4-1 just to be different. But
Okay. We're talking a lot of goals again here, right? Okay, excellent. And,
I know.
rivalry. Liverpool, Chelsea. At Liverpool, at Anfield. I mean, That's a very tough one. Liverpool are obviously top, aren't they? So
Yeah.
2-1 Liverpool, be a cheeky little last minute winner at the Cop End or something like that.
I think that's what I would go for, 2-1 Liverpool in this one.
Okay.
Because Chelsea, I know that it was the draw last time out, but Chelsea feel like there's something starting to happen. But Liverpool have got that, they've been brilliant defence so far.
Are we allowed to go for the same?
Yeah, let's go
okay.
2-1 in that one.
Yeah.
2-1.
Yeah.
I'll say 2-2 just to
there you go.
keep everybody happy. Yeah.
Just not Frank.
Yeah, exactly.
Brought to you by SkyBet.
So, ladies, it's our second episode now.
Right.
So we actually have some community questions from our lovely community and fans. So we've got a few here each. Okay. You can pick one or two of your favourites. But we'll start with you, Kelly, your first one. You've got
thanks,
quite a
Ellie.
nice one. It's, what is the best thing about being a woman in the football industry?
Oh, the best thing about being a woman.
Thank you.
Hello, is that Di? Hi. Hello. Funnily enough, since Di's just walked in, the best thing about being a woman in the football industry is the other women.
Yeah.
By
fair.
miles.
So true.
And that's not me
100%.
giving the right answer. That is just absolutely the case. It's the people that you
Sisterhood.
meet and friends, genuine friends who you have a lot in common with, but we're all very different. We've all got different lives at different stages of our lives, but it's quite a close-knit community. And there's a younger kind of band coming through, and you can see it with them. They're all really tight as well, and it's really lovely.
Yeah.
It's nice.
Okay.
What was your favourite interaction when you were a runner?
Oh, I loved being a runner. I loved it because you got to see the real side of people, you know, and because they would come in, and because you were a runner, and I'd take their coat or make tea or coffee, and it was a real testament to the type of person that you were, how you react to the little people, as I would have been saying. So I judged people. We were talking about judging. I definitely thought, oh, you are really, really nice, and you're not as nice as I thought you were going to be. That happened very rarely, to be fair. But it was always like the big kind of superstars that you never thought would be in the same room as you, or music. I always loved my music. So I used to love bands. When I first started out, I remember Blur being over, and me, because that was my first gig ever, was to see Blur, and then they were in the studio, and that was just mind-blowing to me. And the Lighthouse Family, you remember Lighthouse Family? Do you remember that?
Ocean Drive.
Yes,
That one track.
Lifted.
Oh yeah.
Two
What
tracks, sorry.
what a song, but like amazing. But I remember any kind of bands always, and Dolly Parton. I mean, I've mentioned Dolly Parton.
You did.
For me,
I think
Dolly,
you should try and mention Dolly every episode. 'cause
Dolly
she's worth
Parton
it.
I can easily mention
yeah.
in every sentence. Talk football, I can bring Dolly into it. I mean, she is the ultimate for me. So for me, that was probably the best interaction I think I've ever had. She just wowed me. Yeah, she was brilliant.
Hayley, how do you think sports broadcasting has changed since you started?
I think it's more welcoming, it's less intimidating, more diverse.
Yeah.
I think there are more doors open to people who might not necessarily have a great load of experience, but are struggling to get experience, because back when we started, you could do work experience. You could come up through the ranks as a runner. That doesn't seem to really happen now. You don't seem to get in and work your way up, which is what a lot of us did. But I think the doors are more opening, or more doors are opening. And I think the people that you're working with are more keen to look out for you, care for you, and not see you as a threat. Because I think back in the day when there were so few, if one new person kind of infiltrated the gang, it was like you felt like you were, I don't know, you just felt like a real outsider, and that it was competition sometimes, especially as a female entering a small group of females. I think for me, very early on at Sports News, before you knew it, you were all great friends and you're all looking out for each other. But I think it's definitely more, our industry is more welcoming.
But do you think that's because you've become more established and so your perception's different, or do you see that happening with younger
I think
people
with
as
some
well?
of the younger ones as well. And I definitely make sure if there are new females starting or coming in, I make a point of seeing if they're all right, seeing if they need anything. We had a presenter just doing little bits of freelance with her. She wasn't necessarily very young, and she kept going into the toilets, just the public loos, to get ready all the time, the Sky toilets. And I was like, what are you doing? She's like, oh, like, she didn't know where to get dressed or where to get ready. Like, nobody had shown her.
Oh, yeah.
And then I was like, oh, we do have little dressing rooms here. She's like, oh, is that not like for the talent? I was like, but you are the talent. Like, you're going on screen.
Yeah.
So of course you are. But she didn't see herself like that. Before you knew it, of course, she's got a cupboard with her name on it.
Yeah.
So then you know you've made it.
Yeah.
But but it's just like making sure you look out for these people, because it's quite a scary world to step into.
Subscribe to The Overlap and catch every episode of Not Just Football and much more. You're right about the Sunday roast.
Yeah,
That's when I cook Sunday roast in accordance with the football times.
That's
And
it.
making sure what game's on. And
then some of my little ones fed, worn out, and
Yeah.
she could just sit whilst the football's on.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm with
whatever
you.
she wants.
See,
Same in
I
our
usually have
house.
something on the slow cooker or like a lasagna or something that I make during the day and then put it in so that we eat after the 4 o'clock kickoff. We eat later.
Prep, you're just so good
Oh,
with
you
your
are
prep
so
in the
good.
kitchen, Kelly.